Some people, because of their holiday commitments, their family commitments, have had a caravan in storage for something like 5 or 6 months. And who knows, maybe they're not going to go caravanning till Easter or maybe Whitsun. And therefore it pays to have a little check to see that it's in good shape. For instance, this caravan behind me has a guttering just underneath its badge. And only last weekend that needed to be cleaned out because it was full of leaves. There was also some green developing all over the paintwork, not in profusion, but enough to say, hey, let's get that cleaned before it gets too bad. Now there's also an issue if you cover a caravan, because can you remember in December some of those strong winds that afflicted the country here and there? Covers get loose sometimes, and if they shake about, they can actually cause damage to the paintwork underneath. They even get torn and snagged on little sharp edges on a caravan. So it's time to check a cover, to pull the straps tight, to make sure that there is no further damage taking place. Next I want to have a look at the tyres, because funnily enough it's the tyres, even when the van is stationary, that sustain most damage over a long period of many months. Just look at this for instance. All of the weight of the caravan is pressing down on this section of the sidewall, and of course the same the other side. And if you don't make any movement of this van for perhaps 5-6 months, that is going to sustain damage, and what's more, you'll start to see cracks developing when you resume your caravan next season. Maybe it won't happen on this one, it's only a year old, but after 2 years it can happen. What's the solution? You merely move the caravan perhaps 6, 8, 10 inches, maybe a foot, that's 30 centimetres if you'd rather call it that, so that it's a different part of the tyre that's bearing the weight. It could go that way or that way, and then you put all the position things back in place like the corner steadies and so on. Now I also want to look at the roof, because things can go wrong up there, and remember in December we had some heavy winds. Follow me, I've checked this, it's safe and it's protected at the edge of the roof. Incidentally, inexperienced owners wouldn't dream of doing this. After all, there's very few caravans which have roofs strong enough to walk on. But you could get a mobile service engineer in to have a look at some of these items. Going across to the front window, I noticed for instance that there are leaves all over the place. And we haven't been in store that long. There's also green marks, something to clean. And then there's the condensation too. I wonder whether that condensation is between the plastic or whether it's inside, which we can check later. Happily, I notice there's no damage from the wayward rockets from fireworks night. They can sometimes crack the plastic. Okay, no problem. Let's go back down again. I need to say a little bit about the battery. There are far too many owners who don't pay attention to their battery. They put their caravan in storage and they forget it, they leave it, and they don't ensure that it's keeping a nice good charge level. It must keep up to charge. If it discharges, I'm afraid to say it'll never be redeemable. It'll be ruined. So as you step inside, have a little smell. Oh, is it musty? No, this sounds quite good, but let's just check a few obvious places. No, there's no sign of any water getting in, because if there's any marks or anything else, for goodness sake book in your caravan as soon as possible for a damp check. What about drain smells? Did you remember to put a stopper in the sink, the wash basin and the shower tray? Now let's just check the tap. Yeah, is it open? Oh yes it is, that's how it should be left, and in this case, in this tap, in the centre. It's all about making sure you don't get frost damage. So is the fridge door left ajar as it should be to let air get into the food compartment? What about the toilet cassette, is that still left open? It can get stuck in place if it isn't. I've said before, this is one of the most expensive items altogether of a caravan. So if you can get it indoors and put it in a warm place during storage, that helps. But you don't always have space, and so still it's here. What many people do is they occasionally pop a heater in. Don't use a fan heater, use something like a radiator that's filled with oil, and you can actually leave that going safely for several hours without sitting here watching it. Look after this, it's special,